So this says plot points A, B, C, and D in the coordinate plane. So we're going to plot A, -3, 4. So we go left 3, up 4, plot A, call it A. We're going to plot B, right 2, up 4, call it B. Later in this in these directions, it talks about segment AB, so I'm going to go ahead and connect A to B. Then I'm going to plot C, which is 1, 3, and D is 1, -2, and it talks about segment CD, so I'm going to connect those. It says, tell if AB is congruent to CD. We have to tell if AB is congruent to CD. And we have to show each step and reason, and then mark congruent marks on the graph. So we're going to go over to this little table. By the way, are these congruent? Are they the same length? Did you guys already figure it out? What are they? They're each what? James, what are they? Each of them is how long? Yeah, they're each 5. So we all know right now that the answer is yes, they are congruent because they're each 5 long. So we're going to describe that in the steps mathematically that you have to write down. So step 1. How did you know that they were 5? How did you know? Okay, so you counted the blocks, but I'm going to show that a different way using what we already talked about when we did segment addition, nope, just kidding. When we did on the front, we did distance formula. This mathematically is how you show that the length of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say AB. And when I don't put a symbol, that means distance. Distance from A to B. We're going to do absolute value. And then you look at A to B, and A to B is going left to right. So is that the X's or the Y's that we subtract? Left to right. These are the X's. So we go to A to B and we look at our X's. 2 minus -3. And we subtract those and we get 5. And then we absolute value that and we still get 5. So AB is 5. But I showed that step where I used the absolute value. We're also going to do CD in the same step because it's the same exact work, just different numbers. So CD goes up and down. So what am I going to be subtracting, X's or Y's? Up and down? Up and down? Those are my Y's. So we look at my Y values here. -2 minus 3. -2 minus 3 is -5. Absolute value, +5. So my reason is the distance formula. I got that from the beginning of my notes. Remember how I wrote that there? Distance formula. I wrote that there for you. Okay. Step 2. So we knew each of these is 5. Step 2. Would you all agree with me that 5 equals 5? Would you agree with me that 5 equals 5? Okay, we're good. Would you agree with me that AB equals CD? Why does, not looking at the picture and counting the blocks, why does, according to what I just did, about what I just wrote down, why does AB equal CD? Because they both equal 5. There is something on this definition, if you put it away, we are going to keep referring back to this today. There's something in here that tells you exactly what I just did. I'm going to show you where it is. It's at the end of the second page. It's called the transitive property of equality. These are things that you should have done in Algebra 1, but I didn't teach you, so I don't know how much you did them. The transitive property of equality says, if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. So I'm going to say that again with what we just did. If AB equals 5 and CD equals 5, then AB equals CD. That's called the transitive property. The transitive property allows us to do that. Now, if AB equals CD, we're not trying to find if AB equals CD. We're trying to find if AB is congruent to CD. So if they are equal, we can say they are congruent. So now I changed it to AB with a line over it because now it's a segment. Congruent has the fancy, what's that thing called? Swirl. I think is it called a tilde? And then CD with the line over it. Now this came from our previous page of notes at the very bottom of the front. Says if they are equal, then they are congruent. Says if they are equal, then they are congruent. So my reason that I put down is the definition of congruence. So stuff that goes in reasons would be formulas, definitions, postulates, properties, theorems. That's the kind of stuff that goes in my reason column. And that's all we needed. That's all we needed. Now, the last thing I said was if they are congruent, to mark them with congruent marks. So we go over to our graph. They are congruent, so I can go and give them each the same symbol. Whatever symbol you choose, I just did one little tick mark. They are congruent. So we're going to do this exact same thing a second time, but a different question. So where should we start? Where should we start? Yeah, graph them. Let's graph them. A is -2, 4. B is 3, 4. Oh, that was a terrible line. C is 0, 2. D is 0, -2. Gosh, if you graph them wrong, but then you still do the absolute value stuff correctly, you could still get the right answer. Because sometimes we accidentally forget a negative or something when we graph it. Or if you graph it right and then you do your absolute value wrong, you're still kind of checking your answer. So number 1, we're going to first find the distance of AB and for C.